Oh my goodness, that means we're live, and I'm already unmuted. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Magic Sandwich Show. I'm having some interesting technology things here. We're live or not live? What is that for?
We are live. We are live.
We are live. Good. All right.
It
is a tradition. Our regular viewers will know it is a tradition. We always start late. We always have technology problems at the beginning, but we're always cheerful to do it. It's going to be an interesting and exciting a barn burner today. We're joined by Nate Broady and by David Silverman. We'll introduce briefly in a moment. How are you folks doing? I hope everyone in the audience is good. Myself, I just did a barbecue. I know I had to shovel away 8 inches of snow and then chip ice off the barbecue to do it, but I did it. So I'm feeling good. Magic Sandwich Show, always topical, always interesting. Today promises to be so. So we'll just by way of brief introduction, which is weird, because everybody watching has to know these two guys. If you don't know these two guys already, then you're watching the wrong show. Go watch some cats videos or something. Mr. Nate Broady.
Watch. Right? If they know us, they should stay here and watch.
Well, we could add Dragnut as our producer. I'll thank him many times for his hard work that he puts into this. I think he should add a fourth window where we live feed in some of the cat videos from YouTube, because those things get the views. Mr. Nate Broady has a YouTube channel. He's gone by the name Multiple Personality, sometimes MP. He now goes by Nate Broady, which I understand is a close approximation to his real name. We don't know. His tagline is he's a lawyer turned YouTuber.
That's true.
Which is an upward. Is that a lateral move? Or would you rather be a
lateral move? I think it's a lateral move.
Yeah, I know a guy who's a YouTuber turned lawyer. It was a total waste of his time.
Hey, are you talking about me or Viva now? Because there's a lot of us out there, so.
I don't know. Viva seems like a good guy. He's Canadian, and he always has to specify when he talks about the law that he's not even talking about like Canadian law. It's Quebec law, which is a totally different thing. Nate, hopefully familiar. So he does have a YouTube channel. It's absolutely worth checking out. It's a little more niche than we are sort of broad social topics here. You guys have got to be warmed up for a really interesting broad social topic today. Nate has some great analyses of the law. There's another topic you discuss on there too. What is it? It's something weird like model trains or something. What is it?
Yeah, I do LLC, Law, Life, and Comics, because I'm a big comic fan.
It's the comic thing. It's the comic. Yeah, that's great. Those are the ones I don't watch. That's why.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because but it's part of my nerd lifestyle. And if you've watched the Magic Sandwich Show before, you know my nerd lifestyle. So.
You're high nerd, and I very much appreciate it. Yeah. Mr. David Silverman, who's as I understand, people tell me he's no excuse to he's not unfamiliar with being on camera. It's great to have you here. I gotta warm you up with one question, and I'm hoping there's a prize for this. Please tell me that there's a special prize for being the 1,000th person to tell you how awesome that conversation was you had with, I forgot his name. Bill
O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly.
Is it by the 1,000th person? Is there a prize for this?
It's far beyond 1,000, but
it is.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you for you will get a prize of just determine what that is later, depending on how well this show goes.
Okay, well, I'm not done the question yet. I have to know what happened. So we saw the moment. There's a meme of your crookedy face. What's this guy talking about? It's super. What happened in your brain? Like, we saw this on air. You couldn't suppress the look on your face. What happened in your brain in the instant before you said, "Tide goes out"? Tide goes in. Tide goes out.
Tide goes in. Tide goes out.
There's actually a good story there. So that was my third appearance on the O'Reilly Factor, and but it was the first time that I actually got to sit down with O'Reilly before the show. So we sat down. We're on stage. We're just in chairs and a little table. And we had like several minutes. Yeah, that's the what the fuck face. And so we had several minutes, and several minutes was a long time to have a conversation with Bill O'Reilly. He was educated. He was informed. He was knowledgeable. He knew about Madeleine O'Hare. We had a conversation that was, better than something that I would get from, say, a Sean Hannity. It was an informed, calm reasonable conversation with an intelligent person. Then the camera goes live. And if you watch that clip, there's this, he goes, tide goes in, tide goes out, never a miscommunication. I made that face. And the reason that I made that face, the reason that it was such a short circuit was that not that he was making such a stupid comment, but he was making such a stupid comment in the context of having just come off an intelligent conversation. And if you watch that clip, right after I make that face, I go like that. And that's when I realize that I'm talking to an actor. I'm talking to a person who's putting on a show. Sean Hannity is not an actor. Sean Hannity is like that off camera. What I know of, and I've done his show over half a dozen times, maybe 7, 8, 9 times. And he's an asshole. He's an asshole all the time. But that's okay, because we had kind of a love-hate relationship going on. But I wouldn't say love. I would say friendly jabbing hate relationship going on. But O'Reilly was nice and informed and calm. And when he said tide goes in, tide goes out, I realized that Bill O'Reilly is a fictional character. And that was the face of why is this not why is he asking such a stupid question? It was, why is this intelligent, rational person asking such a stupid question? And that was the face.
That's funny, because that adds sort of that now sort of makes for the third dimension to help explain that face. I'd heard that, by the way, of Sean Hannity, that he doesn't have the acting in him. He just gets up in the morning and he's just Sean Hannity.
It's just him.
But Bill O'Reilly, I've heard he's intelligent. I heard he's got a sense of humor. Apparently he's a funny fellow. He's intelligent.
Hannity?
No, Hannity. We're done with Hannity's. I've got 4 more words for Hannity. I don't like the guy, but Bill O'Reilly, it's hard to.
I don't know about his sense of humor. I've given my share of grief to Sean Hannity because in Hannity and O'Reilly each have their own studios. And so if you go into Hannity's studio, you go into the green room before you go into the makeup room. You go through the green room to get to makeup. And so Hannity comes into the green room, through the green room and into makeup. And so I was in the green room. Hannity comes in and he goes into makeup. It's not like O'Reilly. O'Reilly's got his own makeup in his own dressing room somewhere far away. Hannity came into, so you have to imagine that. I mean, he was just sitting there, in the little hallway right off the green room, getting his makeup. So I helped. So I went over and I was stood behind the makeup person, and then there was Hannity and of course the mirror. So Hannity could see me in the mirror and I was looking at him in the mirror. And I started coaching the makeup person about, adding a lot more makeup, Yeah. And Hannity, I must admit, he took that in stride. He laughed at that. He was, come on, but he wasn't really mad. But that was fun.
Well, we'll move past the Bill O'Reilly thing. I mean, I understand the other thing too is he's surprisingly tall.
Yeah.
His stories
is short, and so when you sit on the Hannity stage, he sits elevated. Because,
really?
Yeah,
he would have to. He would have to. He couldn't survive if he didn't do so. The guy's probably got blocks on his pedals so he can drive his car. But what I've got to say here, so we'll move past that thing. I mean, Bill O'Reilly's story is kind of interesting. I've heard nice things about him, although I don't like his character he played on TV. But he made good money doing it. Apparently, he has enough money for the rest of his life. His career within Fox News, he was such a good fit there. Apparently, he made some missteps, and it kind of hurt his career. I can't imagine what that's like. I don't know what the insight would be like in that. But what's that?
I think he actually assaulted women.
Well, they say. I imagine that's a topical circular. So I'm going to just say sort of as my last sort of introductory comment is that for regular viewers, the Magic Sandwich Show from sort of its previous incarnation, you have to know, please audience, have some sympathy for me. This will be the most difficult episode I've ever done. And the reason is the tradition here, DPR Jones is the regular host and moderator, used to have a set of notes that he would bring to the show. And at the top of the notes, he wrote in inch-high letters, "Let them talk." So I was allowed to talk as much as I wanted. Ozzy was allowed to talk as much as he wanted. Aaron, well, you can't stop Aaron. Aaron's going to talk. So it is what it is. But DPR had to button it. So today's my turn to button it. It's going to be a little bit tricky. I understand Nate sort of has a bit of an agenda plan for us. I'm going to say this is going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to talk about this. This isn't going to be about atheism versus Christians or evolution. You want to talk about evolution, David? Is it? So we're going to evolution. Yeah. Yeah, it's so we're going to have. I mean, Nate, what's you want to open with a question, or David? Do you have a question? Why don't you ask us a question first?
Yeah, go ahead. Ask us a question.
He's going to come up dry. Watch this. I put pressure on him. He can't do it.
You have a question? I have questions for you guys. Here's the question. Have you heard about Atheist Alliance International?
You know what? That's
not.
a great segue because that's exactly what I was going to ask you. So David, tell us about Atheist. And first, let's just get off the table. Congratulations on the new job as executive director of Atheist Alliance International. It must be so exciting. Tell us, what happened? How did it come about? And tell us some of the things that you guys are excited about doing.
Well, so what happened was I was in this hole, which we'll talk about, I guess, later on. Yeah. And as I'm coming out of this hole, I went on the Atheist Republic podcast, and it was the first podcast I'd been on, since the implosion or since the explosion. And I put everything out there. As I told you before, I put out too many details. Yeah. And then I launched my website with all of my evidence and all of my support. And my evidence and support, and we'll get into that later, is pretty convincing that the two women lied. And so what happened was I had one friend on the board of Atheist Alliance International. I had not met anyone else on the board. And he suggested, without really asking me first, that the board consider me for executive director position because he knew what the evidence was and he had read all of it. And like I said, it's pretty convincing that I got screwed. And so the board of directors, really without my knowing about it first, dug in to my case and looked through things. And then they told me that they were interested, or my friend told me that they were interested. And we started talking and they started asking questions. And when you're dealing with, so the board of Atheist Alliance International is a very different kind of board. It's active, it's activist, and it's international. So the people who are looking at this stuff are not looking at the wokeism that is saying women can never lie. They're just not there. They are looking at the evidence and looking at what happened. And we talked for a long time, months. And they offered me the job. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to have this kind of position again, to be able to do so. And so it's not just to have this kind of position. AAI is a different kind of organization. We're an alliance. We're a federation of atheist organizations, but we're also a membership organization, and we're also an NGO at the UN. Yeah. So this is a completely different level of activism. This is not, we're not talking about the 10 Commandments on public lawn anymore. We're talking about human lives. I had dinner last week with an atheist representative from one of our affiliates in Uganda. And he was coincidentally here in Seattle. And I learned something incredible about Uganda that I didn't know. And so what you may know is Uganda has become famous in our circles for their kill the gays law, right? Yeah. So it is not, they're not killing gay people in Uganda. But if you commit the act of gay sex in Uganda, you go to jail. And you go to jail in some cases for life. And there are for life. And there are some people many people who want that to be a death penalty for gay sex. Now, here that's the old news. The new news is that gays are not the worst people, the lowest on the totem pole in Uganda. Atheists are.
But that's the way it usually is around the world, unfortunately.
True. But legally, it's very scary.
Yeah, I can imagine.
In Uganda, you can if you're gay, you can repent. And so the society thinks higher of you than atheists because atheists can't repent. And in Uganda, you can go to jail for having gay sex, but there are no laws against atheism. And the reason there are no laws against atheism is because they're not needed, because the mob will kill you if you're an atheist.
Oh, wow.
If they find you, if you're an atheist, there's no need to put a law into place. The mob will kill you.
That's scary. That's horribly scary.
In Uganda, if you go to a restaurant in Uganda, you can talk about being gay. But if you go to a restaurant in Uganda and talk about being an atheist, you'll be killed by the mob. And this is happening right now. And so I want you to think about the amount of good we can do there. I think about that. The amount of, you can't say you're an atheist in Uganda. Imagine if we just get it to that point. If we just raise it a little bit, if we make being an atheist as bad as being gay, where you can say you're an atheist and not be killed by the mob. Imagine if we just highlight the fact that you can be an atheist and do good. Just that level. Imagine if we can help atheists in Uganda escape. Imagine if we can do the same thing in Bangladesh and in Pakistan. And in Turkey. It's the opportunity here to do good is tremendous. It's exciting. And we have an NGO status at the UN.
Can you just go to what NGO status is for people who are not educated about it?
So we're a non-government organization. We have special consultative status in the UN. So that means we have a presence. Atheists by word have one presence in the UN, and that is Alliance of America. And we are there to make sure that atheists are counted. And we have exposure to the UN Council of Human Rights as a part of our status. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're promoting a program, a sign-on program, where we can actually submit an amendment to the UN Declaration of Human Rights to make it a human right to be an atheist, which it is not.
No, it's interesting because it's a human right to practice whatever religion you want.
Right.
But it's not a human right not to practice religion?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
That's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. It is also true. And it is also the reason why nobody gives a fuck about atheists in several countries. Because it's not even cared for by the UN. So we need to change that. And so the Atheist Alliance International is one of it's non-woke. We don't give a crap about all that stuff. We're just here to do good. And we are here to save some lives and improve the world. And we actually have the tools to be able to do it. And so they hired me to pump life into this organization and to pump effort and to raise the profile of the organization. And what that means is that we get to save more lives. And that means that I get to help personally in improving the human condition, which is a big thing for me. It's, the idea that, a generation or two or three from now, there'll be humans alive because of what I'm about to do at AAI, what we're about to do at AAI. It thrills me. It's not just about the stuff here anymore. It's about real, big, human life-saving, countries-changing stuff that we're going to do at Atheist Alliance International. And I'm really, really excited about it.
So do you see yourself traveling to places like Uganda? Because obviously it's a personal safety issue, right? Because you're probably one of the most well-known atheists on the planet,
Yeah, I would definitely go. I mean, I have Kevlar, and I'm sure we'd have some. Well, I mean, when I was at that other organization, I wore Kevlar all the time. We had a lot of death threats, real, actual. And you know what? I'm just going to go off on a little bit of a side rant here. I hope you die is not a death threat. I'm coming to kill you is a death threat.
Death threat, yeah.
Okay. I hope you choke on a chicken bone. I wish you would die is not a death threat. Please stop saying those are death threats. I'm coming to your house to kill you is a death threat. I'm going to shoot you while you are on stage as a death threat. As somebody who has received several death threats and who has been afraid when he walked on stage wearing Kevlar, please don't say you've been threatened by death if you haven't been. It sucks. It feels bad. But at the same time, it never stops me. And it won't. I mean, I'm not going to, I don't have a death wish, or at least not much of a death wish. I don't want to go to Uganda and be impaled on a pike, but yeah, I'll take very good security precautions and go.
Hey, David, we have some of the people we discuss things with, let's say Christians, but like the radical evangelicals, the young earth creationists. We have a lot of discussions with them. And one of the things they complain about is the number of death threats they get from the atheists. The atheists are constantly giving them death threats. Death threats in the form of things like this. You're stupid, go drink bleach.
Yeah.
And these are people that have no sense of perspective. They don't understand what it's like to be outside of that country and in places where he's going to the bathroom apparently. There's no sense of perspective. Okay. Well, apparently Kevlar vest was not
where you get real death threats. Nobody has ever told me go drink bleach, and I thought it was a death threat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I say. Some of these people just have no sense of perspective. They're so attached to the notion of persecution. They're attracted to it.
It's something really want to be victims.
Yeah.
They really want to be victims. They really want to be heroes, but they're just not willing to actually do anything for it. So they're going to take little tiny things, blow it up, and say, "Oh, look at me! I'm a victim. They made a death threat. They told me to choke on a chicken bone."
Yeah, it's funny because I don't know, when I was in law enforcement, that's one thing we always just talk. People say they threatened me. Like, what did they say? They said that they hope I die. Like, that's not really a death threat. That's like a wishful thinking. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
there are some people I hope bad things. No, I really don't. There have been times when I hoped that people would die.
Hey, man, you got to turn the other cheek. We read that good book.
I try. I really try, Nate. I really try.
While we're having a cheerful moment here.
Yeah.
While we're having a cheerful moment here, I need to remind the audience, hey, it's 2019, so everything on YouTube is all about promotion. So hit that subscribe button. Bang on that bell. No, in all seriousness, the channel's really coming up. We've got a lot of interesting topics coming up. Dragnut, I'm going to remind people, Dragnut Silvis is our behind-the-scenes producer. He's here. He's part of the show. He's not going to put his face on camera, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into guest selection and ideas and topics. If you enjoyed this show before, it's going to be great in the future. So it is worth subscribing. If you want to come join this chat, check the live chat, because kapow, I just put in a message, want to join. There's an email address you can send it to. I hope I didn't type it wrong. kanefm@gmail.com. That message will get you through to our producer, and just try to include, don't write an essay, but just include a brief note as to what you would hope to talk with Nate or David about, and Dragnut will get back to you about how you can join.
Also, the link for the AAI is in the description. So if you guys want to know more about it and just see what's going on, look into the description of the video and click on that link. And I think everybody should at least go check it out.
Yeah, thank you so much. Atheist Alliance is really a kick-ass organization. I'm so proud of it. So yeah, please go check it out and donate and join, because it's end of year, it's tax deductible.
Well, I do want to move us forward, and it's unfortunate because I think honestly we could do a whole show on the reality of what it's like being an atheist in different countries of the world. There's broadly different stories. By the way, just no one's going to care about this, but this is the one nice thing about hosting, is you get to bring up these crazy irrelevant things. It's relevant to me because it's my country. Is God? You guys, either one of you ever read the Constitution? Your country has a Constitution. Either of you ever bother reading it?
I had to read it end to end. Yeah, I've read it. God is not in there. It's in the Declaration, but it's not in the Constitution now.
Well,
My
creator
nation.
year of our Lord is in the Constitution.
What's that? Say again.
Year of our Lord.
Yeah, year of our Lord, but yeah, that's true. But God is actually not directly mentioned, but just
that's
true.
the
Year of our
expression.
Lord.
My country, the Constitution Act begins with the words in preamble, whereas Canada, I mispronounced my own country's name, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, ... Later, you are guaranteed the right to not believe in a God. A constitution that is preambled by recognizing the supremacy of God guarantees your right, and there's very little case law in Canada because we generally don't fight over it. But I do want to kind of we don't care. Actually, the one thing I would face.
Move to Canada.
One of the reasons I don't want my identity known is because there are crazy people out there, right? I don't want them. But the other thing is, I don't want my neighbors knowing that I discuss issues of religion with people online, because it would be like, why bother? Why would you want to break someone's faith? Blah blah blah. Because we don't have that thing. This is not going to be a show about how a wonderful Canadian culture it is. This is going to be a show. I want to remind people there is going to be a time limit on it. Do we say 90 minutes? So we're a half hour into it already. So the literature culture people would know that we're entering Act 2. So Nate, have you got another item on your agenda you wanted to move towards?
Yeah. So now obviously we want to go talk about the big thing that's been in the news about why you left AA and what that was like the past, I think, 2 years. You've been on some other podcasts and been discussing it. So I just wanted to introduce our fans to what's been going on, because just full disclosure, I was a huge David Silverman fan back in the day. So I've watched all your stuff. I love the debates with everybody from Frank Turk to, I'm like, YouTube was my thing back then. So I'm like, always like, whenever I saw you on, came Oxford and all that. So I always, I found it very refreshing. And it was one of those things because, coming from the Black community, you can't really tell people you're an atheist. You say, I don't believe in God. That's just like saying, I'm an evil, devil worshiping Satanist, and that's just the way it's always considered. So really, the only outlets that we really had for atheism was online, maybe like 5-6 years ago. And you were one of the most prominent ones who are in the system. So explain to us kind of just what happened and your whole understanding of why you left, and then kind of how you've recovered from that.
Sure. Well, I haven't recovered from it. I'm recovering. So let's see. I'll take the step back. I was married. I cheated on my wife. I cheated twice, and once was with a 22-year-old at a SSA convention. The 22-year-old was with me all day. She, was with me from before lunch through dinner, and then we went home to my apartment, to my hotel room that night. She later decided during the walk from the dinner to the hotel, it was about a mile. It was a long walk. She did not appear intoxicated at all. I wasn't intoxicated. We were just talking. She asked me for a job. I said, no, you can't. If we fuck, you can't ever have a job with me because it'll be a conflict of interest. Which at the time I thought covered me ethically because I was very clear about that. She asked me, well, what about a knowing wink? And I said, what? And she said, well, can I get a knowing wink if I ever see you again? I said, yeah, you can get a knowing wink. And I remember that because it was the first time I'd ever heard the phrase, a knowing wink. Mm-hmm. We went back to my hotel room, and when we were done, I gave her cab fare home. She kissed me goodbye. Everything was fine. Chatted with her 6 months later. Everything was fine. Just catching up. Then about a year and a half later, apparently she got mad about what happened, decided that she was too drunk to consent, and blocked me. And I don't know what changed her mind. But then when the BuzzFeed came out, she apparently, well, she lied. She told BuzzFeed that she was too drunk, and that I had told her that she couldn't work for me after we had sex. And those were two huge details that she lied about, and it crippled me. And then a few years later,
Well, just to go back to the first, Do you mind if I ask you a question about this first?
Right
or you're about to move on to the next one, or?
I'm about to move on to Beth.
Oh yeah. Well, just with this one, I wanted to ask because well, she said she was drunk, but I think I read the BuzzFeed article and it said you guys met at a bar, or you were speaking at a bar. Was that accurate?
No, I was at an SSA convention, and she came to me. She approached me for lunch at the convention, and we had lunch together. She approached me before lunch, introduced herself as the good kind of stalker. Okay?
I need to meet more of those good types of stalkers.
Right, and so I'm 40-something years old at the time. There's a beautiful co-ed coming on to me strong. I'm newly famous. I'm there, right?
You ate the forbidden fruit.
Oh no, right? I actually take responsibility for my decisions, and I did say yes when I should have said no. But she was with me all day. We took the big group picture together. She was on me, and I was having it. I was all about it. We were. I mean, she was a presence in my day, and she sat next to me at dinner, and we held hands and played with each other under the table, and then we went back to my hotel, and she was not drunk. I will go out on a limb and say she was not drunk at all. She looked and appeared to be 0% drunk. I am 100% sure she was capable of making a decision of whether or not she wanted to have sex. She was lucid, normal.
Well, because it's reading that first account, and this is again from the article. I think she said that she was invited to go to a bar, and she said at the bar she had some drinks. She had some drinks, and she got a little lucid.
It was one of those. It was like a sports bar. We all went there. It was a group event. It was where the dinner was. It was at a sports bar. Her calling it a bar is not accurate. It's a bar. They had a bar.
They had a bar there.
Yeah.
Were you drinking, and was she drinking, or it was just like you guys were just there to talk?
Drinking. I don't remember drinking, and I don't remember her drinking. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But it does mean I wasn't paying attention to it.
No,
I may have had a drink. I normally might have had a drink. I would only have had one, though. And I didn't pay attention. I have no idea if she was drinking at all. I do know that she did not appear drunk at all.
Well, because, it's funny because if you don't know, I was in law enforcement, and it's funny because, like, I know people who drive cars drunk, people who take tests drunk, being drunk. Everybody has different, number one, alcohol tolerances. So somebody can take one drink and be drunk, while, somebody like me, I can take a shot and I'll be all right. I need to take like 5 shots because I'm a big fat man. And the second thing is that, I know you guys took a 1 mile, a long walk to the hotel, but, like for instance, if we pulled someone over, well, I couldn't just say that person was drunk. I'd have to give them a test. You'd have the breathalyzers, because some people you just can't. Especially if I've had something to drink, it's even harder for me to tell if somebody else is drunk. So it's like, just saying that you guys walked to the hotel, it just doesn't convince me that it's just like it was just clear like she couldn't have been drunk. Especially if you guys were at a bar at one particular point in time.
We had a normal walking conversation. We were not when you say too drunk to consent to me. You're not talking about somebody who's had 1 or 2 drinks. You're talking about somebody who's too drunk to say, I want to have sex. And that's a pretty drunk person. That's not a person who's slightly buzzed. So I can tell you with absolute certainty, she was not too drunk to consent, because she didn't appear to be drunk at all. She didn't appear or sound intoxicated at all. And I mean, I had 1 drink. I don't think that my judgment was that impaired. My decision-making was impaired, obviously. I should have sent her home. But no, she wasn't drunk. She just wasn't. And she certainly wasn't too drunk to consent. And for her to claim that is real bullshit, and she knows it. And she hints at it, because in the description to BuzzFeed, she talks about all the details that I'm not going into about, I did this and I asked her to have anal sex and all that kind of stuff. She remembers it quite clearly. She remembers some details quite clearly. And the conversation somewhat clearly as well. She wasn't drunk. And for her to say that she was drunk retroactively, 7 years later, by the way, it's 7 years later. Okay, and for her to say that she was too drunk to consent when she was playing for me since before lunch. Remember that. She was with me all day. It's not like I picked her up at a bar.
But I do want to challenge now, but I do want to say this though. The one piece, like even that statement of, we were flirting all day, we were doing all that, like that to me just seems almost irrelevant to the walk home. And the reason why, contextually, I understand you guys were flirting, but generally when we talk about consent and these type of things, this is usually something personal in that particular moment in the hotel room, and she's saying, I don't know if I was drunk. And even reading her account, I grant you this 100%. Even reading her account, she doesn't say I was too drunk to consent. She's like, I believe I was too drunk to consent. It seems a little lawyery to me. You know what I'm saying? It seems very lawyery to me.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it does. So for instance,
you can see that shit. That was filled with that.
But yeah, let me finish this point, because I agree. When you say I believe I was too drunk to consent, then I can't arrest anybody for that. You have to tell me either you were or you weren't. So I agree with that. But I don't agree with the characterization of, because we were friendly or we were flirting together, then it kind of leads to the credibility that this didn't happen. But I do agree that I think BuzzFeed did you wrong in a sense by even publishing an article, unless she could say, yes, I didn't consent and this happened. This, I believe I was too drunk to consent. I would push back on BuzzFeed for that. Go ahead, Hogtie.
I want to make it clear that I am not implying that the fact that we were flirting all day implies that consent could not be withdrawn later. I'm not implying that at all. What I'm saying is that the fact that we were flirting all day, that she was with me all day, shows her intent to bed me, which continued, which was before she decided to drink. If she decided to bed me, she was flirting with me and with me all day long. That was before she decided to drink. That's what I'm getting at. The intent of the day for Rose St. Clair was to bed me. That's my point. And no, I'm not saying that implies that she didn't withdraw consent. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying she never withdrew consent. I'm saying she wasn't too drunk to consent. But I'm not saying that her being with me all day implies that she could not have withdrawn consent. I'm saying her being with me all day implies her intent to fuck me, which she did.
David, I'm going to give you another chance to run over that course again. I'm going to get you to retread that path for a second, because I know that's a very common. I hate this term, but rape apologetics. That you bordered for a moment, and I understand what you're saying, but you bordered for a moment on saying the thing about it's commonly called a rape apologetic when to say that, well, earlier it was pretty clear that's what the person wanted to do. I hear you clearly saying that you understand the principle that a person can indicate that sort of thing and then withdraw consent. So I'm going to give you a moment to retread that. The problem is I have to interrupt for a moment with a couple of important announcements. First off, it's my first day. I gave out the wrong email address. The email address I gave out was, if you wish to contact the producers of the show for your ideas or you're volunteering for participation for subsequent episodes. If you want to come talk to Nate or to David on this episode, email Dragnut.
Gasoline Dreams.
Yes. No, don't use that one. Don't use that one. Oh, you just gave what is, wed. We've got to bleep that out now. Maybe people know that one. I put it in the live chat. It is Dragnut. If you know how to spell it, dragnut@gmail.com. Scroll up a bit, you'll see it in there. Gentlemen, Nate and David, I have to remind you, it's not YouTube of 2006. It's YouTube of 2019. We're going through some growing pains. This will be an 18+ show. I understand that really there's a lot of benefit here if we talk about some of these grown-up issues, and we're going to talk about them like grown-ups. David, you mentioned a specific sexual act moments ago, and I appreciate you chose sort of a socially appropriate word for it. I just want to remind you guys, I'm going to discourage you from some particular sort of, not that either of you have done it. I mean, Nate, David, you've got one F-bomb in, but we want to try to keep the language clean, because those are the things that are going to make it. I want this show to be something that's going to be accessible to young men and young women who are going to be venturing into the types of issues that we're now beginning to discuss. And again, David, I want you to repeat your point about what you meant about consent and about intent. Okay, but I want this show to be something valuable. I don't want it to be something taken down because one of you two choose a bad word. So we're going to be gentle. Cool.
So this is a world of nuance, but it's a very, very important nuance because as you're going to learn, I'm a BDSM person. I'm a kinky person, and when you're dealing with kink, the word is consent. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. Consent can be withdrawn during intercourse. Okay, and that has to be understood. And that is not ever what I'm implying. I am never implying that her being with me all day implies that consent cannot be withdrawn. That's not it at all. What I am saying is that she got up in the morning and she said, I'm going to F David Silverman today. And she came to me before lunch and she called herself the good kind of stalker and immediately began flirting. Then we had lunch together. Then she stayed with me and we had a group picture together, flirting with me all day long. I am not saying that that precludes her from being able to withdraw consent later on. I'm saying that she didn't withdraw consent, and I'm saying that she was with me all day long. And if you read that BuzzFeed article, she doesn't say anything about that, Nate. She said, oh, I picked her up at a bar that night. She implies very strongly that it was just a quick thing. She forgets to add the big fat detail of the fact that she was with me. She came to me and flirted with me all day long. She had intent and she regrets it. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm here. She put on a big effort and she got her prize. And I was all about it because I was the prize. I was a middle-aged man. And I have pictures on my website of me and Rose Sinclair having lunch. I have the big picture that we took together hours and hours before the bar/restaurant. And that shows that she wanted me. And that shows it chips away. It does not negate the idea that she could have withdrawn consent. I don't say that at all. I'm saying she did not withdraw consent ever. And I'm saying she was not too drunk to consent ever. But I'm also saying that she wanted it and wanted it all day long and deliberately lied to BuzzFeed by hiding that fact because she knew it would demolish her point. And I have pictures.
Now, she also did she mention? No, you mentioned the job when you said that she asked you for the job and then you denied it. Now,
I didn't deny it. I turned her down.
You turned it down. Now, I will say this. Just being skeptical, it's almost like saying, I got the milk, but I didn't have to milk the cow. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the quid pro quo is there, but you got the pro, but you didn't get to do the quid. It's what's rational. Most people would believe that, if you're saying middle-aged man, 20-year-old woman, she's asked you for a job, you got the sex, and then she didn't get the job. Did you, is it accurate to say you reneged, or was it just never on the table?
No. I'm completely ethical in my mind in that I was very clear to her while we were walking to the hotel. I was very clear to her that if we ever played, I said ever. I didn't even say that if we played tonight. I said if we ever played, she could never work for me because it would be a conflict of interest. I was very clear. And that's when she asked me if she could have a knowing wink instead, which kind of told me, it still does, that she understood. And I said, yeah, you can have a knowing wink. And she said, okay. And then we continued walking. That's the deal. And if I ever see her at a convention, I will renege on that deal and not give her any knowing wink.
No knowing wink.
No knowing wink. But no, there is zero chance in my mind that I was at all leading her on that she might get a job. I was very specific and I felt good. I remember that. I can say that specifically because I remember feeling good about the strength of the answer that I gave her as we were walking to the hotel.
Now, I do have to put out this disclaimer, just for disclaimer. If everybody wants to sit down, there are always two sides to every story. I always like to say it's, his, hers, and something in between. So, Miss Sinclair's actually put her story out. You can go see it in the BuzzFeed article if you want to see her allegations, obviously, that Mrs. Silverman denies. So just wanted to put out that there was another side to the story, and that's where you can find it. I think, David, you also have your responses on your website.
So thank you for bringing that up, Nate.
Yeah.
I have the reason that I'm back at AAI, the reason that the vast majority of people in the movement have essentially welcomed me back, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, is that the evidence that I have is quite convincing. And the website is firebrandforgood.com, firebrandforgood.com, and /me too to go to the page where all of this stuff is written. You can hear the recording where Neil Carey fires me without reason and he won't tell me why. You can hear the recording of me and Matt Dillahunty where Matt tells me that everything's great. I'll tell you about that in a bit when we talk.
We're about to get into that right now.
See the pictures of Rose and Beth, of Rose, having lunch with me hours before she said we met at a bar. Imagine that. And then her standing next to me in the group picture. Imagine that. It's almost as if she's lying, which she is. And, it's something that, we're going to get to the point where we talk about how I am. And, my knee is shaking right now. And, these women did damage to me.
No, this is a sensitive topic. Don't get me wrong. Listen, I'm going to be straight out with you. I've been falsely accused before too, so I definitely understand how you feel. I understand what you're going through, but mine was a little bit different because mine was kind of I wasn't even at the location that the person said I was supposed to be at to be doing it. So I do understand your frustration and please, this is nothing to be, because you've told this story many times, so there's nothing to be nervous about.
You do your thing.
Yeah. I'm just I just want to be very clear. We I'm skeptical to all claims. I don't believe the women and I don't believe the men. And I challenge, and as I'm doing here, I'm challenging the account. And these are questions that are naturally going to come out. If you guys met at a bar, then obviously she might have been drinking and she could have been drunk. Obviously, if you're walking a mile and you had a drink and she had it, so these are just questions that I thought were reasonable to ask based on this. But again, it's to be skeptical of the claims that are being made. If Rose was here, I would be asking her the same things.
And I hope you do. Please, Rose St. Clair, come on the Magic Sandwich Show. Give these guys your account. Please, I dare you. It's a terrible thing what they've done to me. And, it's also a terrible thing how I've been treated by their friends and how they'd be treated by their friends. As I walk away from wokeism and I look at the people in my rearview mirror, it's rather sad, and there's so much negativity. And a lot of the negativity against me would be eliminated if people would just go to my website and look at the evidence.
Well,
just go and look.
Well, I think, even with the evidence, don't get me wrong, I think some of it is compelling, but I think some of it, it just needs to be fleshed out more. Especially like with the Rose thing, after doing a little bit more investigation, I do agree. I think the Rose situation isn't as cut and dry, especially with the statement of, I believe I was too drunk to consent. That I think would be problematic because, you have to tell me either you were or you weren't, so it seemed like a throwaway, but again, I'm not saying she's lying. I don't know. I actually don't know. But it makes me question that claim a little bit more. Now, also before we get to the next claim, I think the best claim
really fun.
But I actually want to go back to an interesting. BuzzFeed reported that there was another woman. And because they had actually called Rose the third one, because I actually saw it on your site when I was looking through the evidence, and I was like, oh, there's a third accuser, but then you put no, actually second accuser. But supposedly there was an allegation of there was a woman who is hired for some role at American Atheists that you supposedly had been having a sexual relationship with, that they fired before these other two allegations have. Do you want to respond to that?
Not an employee. She was a volunteer, and everything that she and I had was in line with the conflict of interest policy that we had at American Atheists. Everything. We had a written policy at American Atheists, and everything that happened between that volunteer and me was completely on board with that.
So just to be clear, there is no sexual assault allegations with this third woman. There's none of that. And and BuzzFeed actually, when they put third accuser, that's not a sexual assault allegation. That was just something totally separate and not a part of this, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Only reason why, because when they put third accuser, I was like, third accuser. What are we talking about? Did you see that, or am I incorrect?
I saw that, and they're wrong. And no,
All right.
There's just
but there was some contact there. I do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Nate.
Go ahead, take it.
Usher us on to Act 3 here. I guess. Okay, one of the problems with the Rose complaint, or not so much the Rose complaint itself, but about trying to have a discussion about it, is typically when somebody's accused of something, right? There's good behavior and bad behavior.
Yeah.
And when you're accused of something, you're saying, no, I didn't do that bad behavior. I was doing all the good behavior. And the weird thing I find about your story, David, is that you're saying, no, I didn't do that bad thing. I did this other bad thing.
Yes.
Am I being fair? Okay.
Yeah.
So can we address that? And partly because I'm telling you, we're getting messages from someone who's a very good friend of mine. Do I say her name? Greg, do I say her name on air? I don't know. You know what? She's a great person. She's a very strong character, exiled, wonderful person.
Oh,
I think that we ought to sort of take you to task on this issue. Have you ever? I'm going to read the question over here. There's a great way to put it, and now I can't find. Oh, there it is. Have you ever given a job to somebody that you had sex with? So I want to do this in this order first. Okay, well that makes that answer quick. So it's not you had sex with somebody, and then you were in a supervisory position with them after you had sex.
No, I'm sorry.
What
What are we talking about? Was it Rose?
No, I think he's talking about like that volunteer that was hired, right?
Because
and I don't want to get into that too much, but no, there was no payment, there was no employee relationship, and everything that we did was completely on board with the policies. Yeah, it was all written down.
No, I don't think Hogtie was asking about that.
Because
I've never had sex with anybody who's ever worked for me.
Okay, so it's two different questions now. There's a different order. You had sex with somebody and then later became their supervisor. You accepted them into a position. That's question one. There's somebody you had sex with and then later became their supervisor.
When you say supervisor, you're talking about
you hired them. You then allowed them to come work for you. Never happened. Okay.
No.
But the other way, somebody who was in your employ or under your supervision, and then you had come to have a sexual encounter.
About employment, or are we talking about volunteer?
That's I'm going to appeal to Nita. That is not a distinction in law.
Well, but yeah, he's just saying either way. Anytime you're directing someone in an employment setting, either volunteer or employee, it doesn't matter.
I don't want to get into that. I can't get into that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can't get into that. I can just say that what happened between me and that volunteer was in line with the policies at American Atheists.
So in other words,
okay, well,
Hogtie, just to be clear, he's saying yes because of the volunteer, but no for employees. And with that situation with the volunteer, he can't get into.
Right. That's exactly correct.
Under understanding, we have to let him do that, because I just want to mention the reason why I want to do it, and then I want to let Nate proceed with that, because I think there's a legitimate conversation to be had here, right? This is not going to be the let's all feel sorry for David Silverman show, because you, David, have never participated in a let's feel sorry for David Silverman show. But if you want your contribution to this conversation to be of value to an audience, this is a good time to have a conversation about the types of pressures that are put on people, about mistakes that as gentlemen we've made in the past, and what do we want for the next generation, right? So that's why the audience is asking you this question. What do you wish you had done differently in your life that would have maybe avoided some of these problems? These are the types of questions we need to teach younger men about these things, right?
Well, hold on. Can I step in? Can I step in? Can I just step in just real quick? Let's do this. If we can, let's just get through the allegations, and then we could talk about like the aftermath, like the aspirational piece of it. Is that okay, Hogtie?
That'll be Act 3 then, sure. Well, then we got another. Okay, so I take your point. I take your point.
Sure. Because we're going to get to that, but then we're going to go right back into another allegation. It just seems like if we just get through that, then we can just go right back into this. So with Rose, I definitely understand what Rose is. Obviously, there's some issues with Rose, but if we move on to the next allegation. Now, the second allegation with who and what happened.
So the second allegation is it's my real moral failing here is in the second allegation, because the second allegation was my friend Matt Dillahunty's wife Beth, and he was a board member of American Atheists at the time. And she was a friend. She'd been my friend for about 5 years. The reason that it was a moral failing is because I guess I'll give the short answer here. instead of giving the long answer.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that it's a moral failing is because Matt knew we were going to play and vetoed it, because Matt and Beth were poly. Matt said, Beth, don't play with Dave. Beth said, I want to play with Dave anyways. And I said, yes, anyways, even though I knew Matt didn't want us to play. That's my moral. That's the big thing that I did immoral. It's like you said, I'm not here to say I'm completely innocent. I'm not. I made mistakes. I made poor judgment, and I did immoral things. And this was one of them. So I'll give the story real as quickly as I can. And Nate, I want to talk about what she said to BuzzFeed. I'm sure you read what she said to BuzzFeed.
Yes, I did.
And because you're formerly of law enforcement, you'll understand what she did. She gave a report to BuzzFeed that was very clearly lawyerized. Okay,
but just to be clear, you did admit that report was factually correct. Just want to be clear about that.
No, I do not. I don't want to say that at all. I want to say that the individual sentences were true.
Okay.
Okay. And I want to make sure that you understand the difference here. I am not saying that what she said to BuzzFeed was factually correct at all. It was a lie, a horrible mustache twirling telenovela soap opera lie.
Well, we're gonna have to parse that out, because if you're saying if each of the sentences are true, how can they also be lies?
Okay. She said in one of the questions, one of the things that she says, I called her a whore. She told BuzzFeed I called her a whore. She didn't say she told me to call her a whore twice. She didn't say that she demanded to be called a whore twice. And then I called her a whore because she told me to. And only for that fucking reason. I'm sorry. But only for that reason. She didn't say that. She said that we didn't discuss the safe word in advance, but she knew the safe word. How does she know the safe word if she didn't know? So she said no, and I slapped her lightly across the face and told her, you're not allowed to say no to me. She didn't say that we had arranged a safe word. She didn't say that we were in a BDSM play. She didn't say that she was very thrilled with what happened. We played for 6-8 hours.
But I am going to say this though, and again, please, it may just be my law enforcement background, but a lot of times when you have these type of things, you hear this all the time. You hear this from we were together. She was wearing a short skirt. We were playing together. We were having a great time, and I don't know why she said that. I put the gun to her head, and it's. And again, I want to be respectful, but it's almost sounding like it's almost like a slight slut shaming, let me throw BDSM out there, and then you know what I mean? It's sounding like that.
I understand, and I'll go into as much detail about this as I can, but I want you to know the insidiousness of this. Okay, so we were playing for hours. Okay, we started off right after dinner. We were making out in the side of an alcove in a building. We were getting really busy. We established that we were in a BDSM arrangement at about right about there, right after dinner.
Okay.
We were engaged in a BDSM relationship for the rest of the night. I was telling her to do things like show me her breasts, take a picture of her vagina and show it to me on her phone. Things like that, and she was all into it. When everybody was gone, we started playing. We established the safe word. She stood in front of me as she's taking off her clothes. She's telling me, call me a slut, call me a whore, call me a hole. Richard Carrier isn't even man enough to call me a slut. These are her words. Demanding that I call her nobody had ever asked me to call her a hole before. She was the first person to ask me to call her a hole. And I'm into BDSM, but I'm not into degradation. But I did anyways. So this is actually, I was doing things that I don't normally do with her because she asked me to, including calling her a whore, which she repeated again when she was on her knees by my feet. She said, call me a whore. I used to be a prostitute. Call me a whore. I called her a whore. She complained to BuzzFeed that I called her a whore.
But now, even in your account and even in her account, like I didn't see the part from reading both accounts. It seemed that that both of you were agreed that this kind of happened spontaneously, right? There was no like, let's just go have sex. It was kind of like something that developed during the day, right? Is that kind of happened?
It started at night. It started at dinner. We sat next to each other at dinner. This is a woman I'd known for years. So we sat next to each other at dinner. We started flirting at dinner.
But now, so she's saying that she didn't consent to what? Because if you're saying this is a whole day event, did she not consent starting at 8 a.m. or did she not consent to a certain part? Like what part are we talking about?
She is saying that none of the things that we did that I have witnesses to happened. She's saying that as soon as the door closed and we were alone, I turned around and I started grabbing at her tits and grabbing at her breasts. And then she said, no. And then I slapped her across the face and said, you're not allowed to say no to me. And she said, red, because that's what you say when you're being attacked. And then I stopped.
Well, just a clarification. She said no first, and then she said red. She said at first she said no, you didn't recognize the no. She said red, and she said red is a universal safe word for BDSM. I don't know. I told my wife red the next day after she said that.
Yeah,
say it again.
It's a universal safe word. I'm sorry, I'm swearing.
I want to be honest with the facts.
Go ahead.
I want to be honest with the facts here. There's some mention of so I don't know if this is part of sort of slapping play, the BDSM stuff, or whether there's a degradation element to it. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. I just want to be honest with the facts. There was some mention of either a request or an instruction that somebody would spit in somebody's mouth, a preference that wouldn't happen, and then a word, and then either it happened or it didn't happen a second time.
Right.
Can we be honest to those facts? And again, we're really soon, Nate. I'm not sure where we are on your. I'm not sure how much of an agenda you have there. We do need to sort of move on then to this is all interesting stuff, but we'll refer other people to a very detailed discussion that David had.
Yes.
Rather than retreading all the details. And then being the Magic Sandwich Show, I kind of want to know what the point is. Why do we want to eat up David's time and our audience's time to have this somewhat blurred discussion? So those two things, David, I want to hear first about clarify, because I think the details are not the same as I'd heard in other opportunities. And then Nate, if we could move forward onto that. So David, you want to take the spit topic and then we'll move on.
So she stands in front of me. She gets naked. She gets on her knees. She tells me to call her a whore. I call her a whore, and she's telling me to call her these bad things, and I'm trying to do it right. And so I took her hair and I pulled her hair back, and she said, and I said, I'm going to spit in your mouth. Open your mouth. And she said no. And that's when I slapped her lightly across the face. I said, you're not allowed to say no to me. Remember, the safe word is red. And she said, I remember. Or she said, I understand. And I said, open your mouth. I'm going to spit in your mouth. And she opened her mouth. I spat in her mouth. Then I said, open your mouth. I'm going to do it again. She said, red. And then I stopped. That's what happened.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's just that detail wasn't necessarily clear in another discussion you had about it, and that was that she had said no, and you did it anyway, and then she said red.
I didn't do anything.
She didn't do it. No, I'm not. Okay, go. Yeah, but I just want to get the order. Okay.
Nothing happened that she didn't want to do.
Well,
nothing. Zero happened that she didn't actively want to happen. That she didn't consent actively to do. I couldn't spit in her mouth if she didn't go like this. Okay.
So now, but now, I'd like to get away from the graphic details.
Well,
let's go. Let's get the
I just want to say that was the reason that question was germane, and I appreciate it. It's going to be bizarre because there's a reason why I think that detail, which you weirdly left out this time, this speaks to the issue about consent. This is an unusual area. When somebody says no, we're in a world of no means no. But you have in previous interviews tried to tell the audience that in some circumstances it doesn't mean no.
That's correct.
I want this group to be crystal clear on what that means.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, she said no, you did it anyway, then she said red, and then you didn't do it.
Okay.
That's the thing I want to educate the audience about.
Okay, let's talk about that. So part of BDSM is, so when you're talking about a BDSM relationship, the important thing to understand is that the sub is in control, not the dom. The sub sets the parameters. The dom obeys the parameters. The sub says, call me a whore. The dom calls her a whore. Okay. And there's this dynamic where the sub often, most of the time, wants to be in a situation where they can say no and be disobeyed. So that's part of the illusion that you set. So you arrange the safe word. This is the purpose of the safe word. No doesn't work anymore. I'm going to disobey your no. Ha ha ha. And then red is the safe word. Red is the sub's ability to assert her autonomy. So the word no is kind of substituted for the word red by prearrangement, which is something that is very common in the BDSM community. It's what we do for fun. And it's normal. And people in the BDSM community will know this. There is nothing rapey about it at all. It's about fun. And nothing happens without the consent and directive of the sub.
Well, what I do want to move to is the evidence for this one, because this one seems to have a lot more evidence. Like, for instance, you have the lie detector test, you have the recordings, and you have I forget the woman's name who saw the picture of the vagina.
Uh-huh.
So first, the lie detector, you passed with flying colors, right?
Right? Yeah.
But now I do want to push back on the lie detector, because lie detectors aren't admissible in court for one strange reason. It doesn't tell you what the truth is. It tells you that the person believes they're telling the truth. So, for instance, if we gave you a lie detector, you could pass with flying colors, and we can give her a lie detector, she'll pass with flying colors.
I'll pay for it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's possible. And with that, if you have two people who, lie detectors saying they're both telling the truth, it's like blah. Because it's about your perception of what the truth is.
I will gladly pay for Rose and Beth to take lie detectors at the place that you, Nate, can choose, because I know that they know that they're lying. And polygraphs are not foolproof by any means. Christine Blasey Ford used one. I asked people to give mine the same respect they gave hers.
And I would tell I would tell her fans the same thing too. They just tell me what she feels is true. It doesn't tell me what's actually true.
What I have it's use what we have.
No. Again, we're just being skeptical about. Again, it's just being skeptical at the claim, just going through them and just saying you passed the lie detector. But I'm just saying, the way I evaluate it. And the second one was the recording for Matt Dillahunty. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. The recording. It says what you say it says, but it seems to be a lot more recording. So I personally dismiss that until I hear the full recording, because I don't, I'm just someone. So if you will will you release the full recording so we can hear exactly what happened, or is that just enough?
The reason I don't want to release the full recording is because it has sensitive information on it, but I'll give you the full recording. You can listen to it.
All right, that's fine. I would definitely listen to the full recording. Because again, it's the one thing about it, listening at snippets, is that you lose context. And I don't know if he said right before that, yeah, you son of a bitch, I'll never do anything with you, but I'll stand on the stage with you because we work for American Atheists. You know what I'm saying? There could be something that he could have said dramatic right before that, right?
There isn't. Okay.
I believe you, but well, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe anybody.
But I think, Nate, are you married?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, Nate.
Go ahead.
Let's say I sexually assaulted your wife.
Yes.
Let's say I grabbed your wife by the breasts and left black and blue marks.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's say she came to you and said, Nate, with tears in her eyes, Dave Silverman assaulted me.
Okay.
Okay. Now I get you in a room 2 years later, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to you, hey, Nate, man to man, how are we?
It all depends on what happened after that 2 years. You know what? Let's put it in true context. Me and my wife are poly. I told her not to fuck you. She does. Makes me mad, right? 2 years later, you come to me. How are we, right? And I could be totally upset at you. I can be like, oh my God, you did this, and we can have a problem. Or I can say, you know what? Me and you are cool. You know why? Because I told her not to mess with you. She did it anyway, and she got caught and blah, blah. So I could just be mad at her and be like, I'm cool with you, but I'm mad at her because she did it. Or if I actually thought that you sexually assaulted her, I could be, so there's a lot of context that can happen after 2 years. And you're talking about something that happened 2 years later too.
I'm not letting you do that. I'm saying
mm-hmm.
You believe I did it. You believe I did it.
I believe, if I believe you sexually assaulted my wife, and 2 years later, we probably are not going to be cool. But I want to say this. I don't know what their relationship is.
And if you are poly, and if I fucked your wife against your wishes, as you said, and then I got to you 2 years later and said, "Hey, how are we?" You might very well give exactly the response that Hannity gave me. But if I sexually assaulted your wife, there's no fucking way you're going to give the response that Hannity gave me.
But there's a lot to assume there, David. I got to assume that she told me.
No. It's little stuff. You know what, Nate? You may have sexually assaulted my wife, but this other guy, he's Dan Harrell. He says bad things about me. I'm not going to get on the stage with that mother guy. But you only sexually assaulted my wife a couple years ago.
No,
you're cool.
I hear you. I don't. But the thing is that I would have to ask Matt. Did he know? Did he know? Number one, you know, what was their relationship at the time? You know, were they? No, was he divorced from? Was he divorced at the time when he said this? You know what I mean? I don't know.
That was right before he was on the board when I was reelected president of American Atheists. So he was perfectly cool with a rapist or not in his room. He was cool with a rapist or not on the leading the organization. But now he's all about, I'm such a rapist. I'm such a bad guy. Yeah, it's full of shit, Nate. The timelines don't work, and that's why I'm mad.
I'm just being honest with you. Thinking about it. Two things. Number one, about the Matt Hannity recording. I do agree. If it was me and my wife and the way our relationship is, because we're not poly, and she said you sexually assault, you got a problem because we can't be in the same room together. I may try to kill you. Forever. Agreed. Right. Agreed. That's me. But in the situation that they're in, he may not be that type of guy. They may not have a relationship, or since they're already sleeping with other people, she may have said, I just made a mistake. I don't know what that relationship. I don't even know what she told. I don't know any of that. But what I will say though,
dangerous.
But I do want to say one thing.
Dangerous.
But
if I do his wife, I could hurt other women.
But I do want to say one thing though, is that I think it's irrelevant. I think it's irrelevant what Matt's response to it, because Matt wasn't the one who says that he was assaulted. He can say he's 100% cool with it. That could have been his fantasy for, I'm not saying it was. He could have just had that type of fantasy to somebody to do that to his wife. I don't know what it is, but and I want to say that that's just an allegation. I don't know what it is, but I will say this: the fact that she says that it was no good, that's something that I think is reasonable rather than with his response to it. Like I understand where you're going with it, putting it in context, but to me, it wasn't evidence that it didn't happen. It was evidence of him may not being a great person in terms of backing his wife. But again, I would have also and also that's trusting what you're saying and not understanding the full quote in context. So I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt with that. And then the third piece of evidence that was put forward was the picture of the vagina. Now, what happened? Now, obviously, you told her to take the picture in the phone, and I read the statement, but the person doesn't say it was actually her thing. It said it was, she saw a white vagina. So it's it gets to the point now, and please don't take this the wrong way.
No, I understand.
But I'm just going to give it to you cold, like I would give it to you. I'm just going to give it to you cold, and this is just weird. This is just the way it is. You have two women who've come forward and said these things, and you're saying that they're lying, and you may be 100% true, and that may be and you sound 100% credible. But I'm going to say this: if I'm just being rational and skeptical about your claims, there are a couple of things I have to bring up just for the audience sake. Number one, the only person here that's been proven to have lied is you.
Correct.
You've lied to your wife.
Yes.
You've lied to the organization. Now you're. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I believe that I have proven both Rose and Beth have lied.
No. I'm saying I don't accept I think there's some ambiguity to it, but I'm just saying, just plain, you've lied to your wife. You've lied to this. You've lied, and you've admitted, like, I've lied. I've done all these wrong things.
Yeah.
But now you're asking us to take the leap of trusting your word over theirs because you're saying they're lying, and you're saying here's the evidence, the lie detector. Now, none of that to me shows that they're actually lying. It shows that there may be some ambiguity to it, or even there could be some untruthfulness to it. I would even grant you that. But are you asking the fans to take your word over theirs especially since your credibility now is being put out there, and you have admitted multiple times that you have lied about these particular situations.
Okay, I have never lied about sexual assaults. I have
not sexual assaults, but you said you said I lied to my wife, I've lied to this person, I've lied. So,
and I want to make it clear because you're making a really good point, Nate. I am not asking you or anyone to take me on faith. I am not asking anyone to do that. I am asking everyone to go to my website, look at my evidence, read the BuzzFeed article, look at their side, and decide. And the reason that I'm saying that is because the evidence on my website is, I believe, so convincing that people will see that these two women have lied, that people will see that what was done to me by these two, and that people will see that feminism, that organized feminism right now, is protecting what are obviously two people who lied about sexual assault because they don't want to admit that women lie about sexual assault. I am not asking anyone to believe me, but I'm telling you that most people, save almost all of the people who have looked at what I have, believe me, because I am telling the truth about this thing. And I have lied about other things. And I'm sorry about lying about other things, but I was married and I was trying to protect my marriage. And yeah, I lied to protect my marriage. And that's true. That's all true. But I have nothing. Look.
Hey, we all make mistakes. I grant that. I grant we all make mistakes. But but you have to. Well, we only have like maybe 5 minutes for this topic before we have to move on. But I just want to make it very clear. If you're telling the story is that we have the lie detector test, you know, this the short recording, the fact that someone else saw a white vagina on your phone. Now when
your phone, not mine.
On whose phone?
On Beth's phone.
So Beth's had a white vagina on her phone.
Yeah.
So when I'm
in the phone.
So what I'm saying is when we put all of this together, it's just come to the point where if you're asking us to take a leap of faith based on your testimony and based on this evidence, and I'm just saying that some of this evidence, I think some of it leans towards your favor, but I think a lot of it doesn't. I think what it does, it puts me in a neutral state to say I'm still skeptical to their claims, but I'm still skeptical to your claims, and I'm being fair to both sides here. And the evidence that's been presented, it hasn't moved me in either way, but it's made it a more interesting conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm confused by the fact that the evidence hasn't moved you. I mean, do you think, Matt Dillahunty, do you think it's actually feasible? I mean, you're thinking as a cop. Start thinking as a cop and start thinking as an activist. Do you actually think Matt Dillahunty would be fine with me becoming president of American Atheists? Would be fine, would say water under the bridge? And there are some people I won't get on stage with, but you're not one of them. Do you think he's actually, I mean, there's two possibilities there, Nate. The possibility, as you stated, is either he's okay with me assaulting his wife, or he knows I didn't. And I don't think that you think that he thinks it's okay that I assaulted his wife, especially nowadays when he's going around screaming at everybody that I did.
Well, I'm
kind of questioning you on this, Nate, because
okay, no, you can.
in my opinion.
Let me. All right, so let me tell you my 100% stone cold opinion about everything. Number one, the first allegation with Rose, I believe that she's a 22-year-old who got kind of caught up with a powerful man who's been on TV and who's done all these things, and she wanted to get some play and she wanted to get a job. Maybe you're right. I don't think the whole one mile walk while I'm inebriated is a good enough sobriety test to say she wasn't drunk. I believe you meet somebody in the bar and you drink, you had a drink, she had a drink. It's hard to tell if somebody's drunk in that particular situation. And again, you've admitted to everything that you guys had sex, you guys played, you guys did everything except, and she doesn't even say she didn't consent. She says she believed that she was too drunk to consent. So that, I think, isn't the horror show it's been made out to be. I think because you're a public figure, maybe it's become worse. But I don't think any of the evidence has really shown one way or the other. I think it's all, if I feel right now, if I put her in a lie detector, it would say the opposite. The second thing about Rose, again, I think the evidence that's been shown, I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's not convincing. It's not convincing that she lied about anything. And to be honest with you, it's not convincing me that you're lying. What it's convincing me of is that something happened and maybe it was some confusion there. But if we put everything together, the fact that there was this other volunteer that you slept with when that was an employee, the fact that you slept with a board member's wife, and the fact that you slept with another woman, and these two now are coming forward, it seems more likely. And this is for me. This is my time as a prosecutor, my time as a cop. It just seems more likely than not that I would believe the allegations based on the aggregate evidence that's been presented than not. And again, that's just my opinion, and it's just my opinion from my experience.
You believe that Rose was too drunk to consent?
No. I said it would lead me to believe the allegations, but at this particular time, I don't believe Rose was too drunk to consent. I believe she says she believes she was too drunk to consent, and I believe that belief that she was too drunk to consent is not enough to accuse you of sexual assault. I think the Rose, the Beth situation, I think it's a totally different situation. And I think if you're asking my stone cold opinion, I've only heard one side of the story, and the other side of the story I haven't heard except for the BuzzFeed article. But right now, it's just that neither side is convincing to me. This side has something, but the other side, until I actually hear what the other side says, I'm just going to withhold judgment. Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough. Just bear in mind that you're never going to hear her side of the story because she's lying. And so that neutrality that you have right now is going to linger infinitely, because even after the law.
I'm supposed to speak to her soon. I've got an appointment to actually speak with her to get. I was planning on hopefully speaking to her after your lawsuit and stuff. So I've called American Atheists and I've spoken with them. Yeah, I've done my research and I've plan on speaking with that. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not.
Impression. Wait, I'm seeing the future. I see the future. Beth will never talk to you. That's my prediction of my psychic powers, because she knows that you will never talk to her. And my only comment, Nate, is you can reserve judgment, but put a time limit on that shit. Okay. And when she doesn't talk to you, realize why she doesn't talk to you.
I'll buy you a beer. If she doesn't talk to me, I owe you a beer.
Yeah.
But now I do want to just get back, because we have a very limited time left. So I do want to get back to the firing. So these allegations come in. American Atheists, they said they had there was 2 allegations before, the 2 when we talked about some financial impropriety, which now I saw the board members' letter that said it was absolutely false. Which now something like that I 100% agree with. Those allegations were false. The board member came out and said, no, that's bullshit. You got me. That the financial fraud allegations were 100, I believe, were false. But now the firing. So you've been going around saying that they didn't give you due process. What do you mean by that?
Well, no, hold on one moment. The due process topic is such an interesting one. It's going to require some depth. We just skated over the financial issue thing. So this has been a point of confusion that I have. And you got to feel some heat on this one, because this has been something that's confusing. So American Atheists announced publicly, BuzzFeed picks up the story, regardless of what BuzzFeed says, you can go to American Atheists. They got it on their website. David Silverman, respected for a number of years. We had some issues with them, with some behavioral choices that were a problem, and some financial impropriety. David Silverman puts his face in front of any camera that somebody puts a live light on. David Silverman will talk to you about it, to say, "Oh, I didn't do these assaults." Right? You'll cop to, I made some bad choices, but you don't say anything about the financial stuff. But I apologize. We're going to have to limit it to like about maybe 5 minutes. I want to be fair to you with it.
I understand stuff.
I want to be fair to them as well, but we then need to move on. We have 2 questions from the audience, and like I say, we do want to keep it pretty short. So go ahead and say what you want about the financial thing, and we'll let Nate sort of grill you about it.
Okay, so there was nothing, and I mean 0 things that I did with American Atheist money that was bad. I did. The American Atheists has its numbers audited every year. There was 0 bad spending. Every dollar I spent on the Fighting God book tour was pre-approved by the board, and they fucking know it. Sorry, I swore again, but they know it, and they pre-approved it, and it's in the board minutes, and I have records of that because it was sent to my personal email address. The intent of the Fighting God book tour was for me to advertise American Atheists as I went around on book tour. The total Fighting God book tour, I was supposed to get reimbursed for American Atheists. The total Fighting God book tour net cost to American Atheists was about $4,000 for the whole tour, and that does not include the memberships and the donations that they made on top of it. It was completely above board, completely ethical. I stand by every dime I spent on American Atheists ever. And when they did their deep dive financial audit, they proved that. And I wish American Atheists that firmly.
But hold on.
I'll ask you a question in a second, but and then we do want to put it in due process. We'll come back to it.
No, not even due process. I want to read the. Sorry, before we go off. Yeah, I need to read the statement from American Atheists. Just from it was in September 2016. Nick Fish, spoke for American Atheists, said that the sexual assault allegations were not the reasons for Mr. Silverman's termination. The board was able to review a lot of documentation that allowed them to conclude that Mr. Silverman was in violation of internal policies, including staff management, conflicts of interest, and violations of general code of conduct. Mr. Fish said that he, David, lost confidence from the board, and his contract allowed him to be terminated for any reason, and the loss of confidence was more than enough. That is just American Atheist statement in the Washington Post, September 6th. So I just wanted to put that out there just for the other side. Go ahead, David.
Translate that. What does it say? It says nothing.
Yeah, it says that you had a contractual agreement that you could be fired without cause, and they fired you without cause. That's more or less the way I read it.
Go ahead. That whole due process is going to be more financial. Go ahead, David.
Go ahead.
Well, let them just respond to that, though. Go ahead, David.
Well,
David, go ahead.
I don't want to get into something because this is getting into the lawsuit now.
Yeah, I just wanted to read that statement, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, they found excuses for their knee-jerk reaction, okay? And they made some statements in their knee-jerk reaction, in their excuses for that knee-jerk reaction. They, to the BuzzFeed account, they made really, really vague statements like the one you just read, which said nothing. And that's the stuff that really hurt me because it's so vague. And that's why I'm glad you read. In fact, Nate, could you pull up the letter from the board member from firebrandforgood.com and read that paragraph, because that's the only thing that's actually, saving me here. Thank you, Mario, for being the one humanist on the board of directors of American Atheists who could actually, state for the record what the forensic audit, they paid money for a guy to come in and do a forensic audit. Now, American Atheists gets audited every year. So it would have been really stupid for me to embezzle any money. But just in case, they did do a full forensic audit. And what did they find? Nate, do you have the letter?
Yes, I do have it. I'm going to read this fast. Despite what may be reported, David did not embezzle from American Atheists. As far as I know, there was no discrepancies in the number of financial statements, and third-party auditor accounted for the treasury, and other funds attached to the organization. The decision to remove David as president of the organization was made with heavy hearts and done so to protect the organization from any and all allegations against them. But I also
protect the organization from allegations.
But I also want to state this is that the board vote, if this is a board member, the board vote was unanimous. So this gentleman also did vote to terminate you.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, because this is what they did. They knee-jerked. I mean, it seems obvious to me. They saw the BuzzFeed article coming. The BuzzFeed article came down. They knew it was coming, and they knee-jerked. And so they unanimously voted that they needed to separate from me to save the organization. That's why they did it. That's why Mario did it. But if I did something real bad, Mario's not writing me that letter. Mario's not clarifying for me.
Okay,
Mario's my ass, being the only humanist on the board. Mario's not doing that if there's anything wrong.
Okay, for the moment, just accepting for the sake of discussion that explanation. Was there a subsequent discussion about rehiring you on the board?
No.
Okay, because I mean, one of the questions that comes in specifically is whether or not Matt Dillahunty. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with this, by the way. We had some speculation of Matt Dillahunty, who's sort of kind of strikes me as a bit of an innocent bystander here. I appreciate, marriage has some difficult processes to it, but was Matt Dillahunty supportive of your termination, or later supportive? Would he have voted to reinstate you after this is revealed?
I don't know. Well, I can speculate. I don't know what he would have done, but I can speculate.
Maybe not.
I speculate that the reason that the board fired me was twofold. I suspect It was, number one, the allegations were coming down from BuzzFeed. Number two, Matt Dillahunty got up in front of the board and said Dave Silverman raped my wife. That's what I think happened, or assaulted his wife. That's what I think happened. That's why the board did that. My board, they were my friends, okay? They didn't do what they did for fun. Kathy Johnson didn't vote me out without due process, thanks, Kathy, for fun. They did it because they thought they had to.
No, I always go back to this because, all right, for me as a lawyer, due process means the
not yet. Not yet.
All right, go ahead.
I'm going to apply one moderator privilege here, only because there's another party involved in this discussion, and that's the audience. We do have to be fair to our audience. They don't just sit here to watch silliness. When they ask a question, I want to bring it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to totally derail the conversation, and then we're going to come back on the point about due process.
No, go to audience questions. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question about feminism, and then we're going to talk about due process, and I'm going to ask a favor of Nate as we venture into that. So I'm wondering, and actually, somebody had wanted to come in and ask this, but they're having some technical problems, and I want to sort of just take you to task a little bit. Again, this is totally off topic, but it's one you should be able to handle. Is you made some remarks on Drunken Peasants about feminism, that you had believed in feminism, and then you were red pilled in like you had a conversation with Sargon. Can you just help me understand what you think feminism is? Is it a good thing? Is it beneficial? Where do you sit with the feminism thing? And then we'll get back to the other discussion.
Okay, so I've been a feminist since I was 18. My first feminist, maybe even 16. My first activism was feminist activism. I've carried the banner high and proud for my entire life, and I have put the banner down. And the reason that I put the banner down is because feminism changed underneath me. And I didn't realize it was changing underneath me. I was about feminism because feminism was about equal work for equal pay, the elimination of the glass ceiling, the end to systemized misogyny. Feminism has changed and is now about revenge. It's now about revenge against men. It's now about believe all women, even if they lie. It's now about who is feminist enough and pointing fingers. And of course, there's no mercy, forgiveness, or redemption allowed ever. Feminism has changed into this third wave intersectional woke feminism that is frankly poisonous. And I have discarded it completely. So am I a feminist? I'm my kind of feminist. I'm a second wave feminist, and I am a firm second wave feminist. And I am not a third wave feminist because due process is real, civil discourse is real, and equality does not mean using feminism as a weapon to take down innocent men. That's not what feminism is. And I think that what was done to me in the name of feminism was very, very different from feminism. And I think that feminism right now has a major problem in that, feminism now has a Catholic Church problem. Okay, when I was first starting in atheist activism back in the 90s, the Catholic Church was hiding pedophiles. They would have a pedophile, they'd say, oh, we're going to handle him behind our closed doors. And we all in the atheist movement would scream, no, you need to cast your pedophiles out. And feminism is now looking at Rose St. Clair and Beth Presswood and saying, okay, there's some good evidence here that you lied, but we're going to protect you, and Dave Silverman's a bad guy. And that is poisonous to feminism. That is against feminism. That is anti-feminism. That is going to hurt. That has me coming on TV, coming on your podcast and saying, you know what? Women lie about sexual assault because they do. And because if I don't get my livelihood back. And that's the choice that feminism has put me in because it protects its pedophiles, because it protects its metaphorical pedophiles, because it protects people who are abusing Me Too, because it doesn't want to admit that women can lie about sexual assault. Just like the priests didn't want to admit that other priests could molest children, feminism can't admit that women can and do lie about sexual assault, just like they did about you, Nate. Just like
that question.
And
that question
as a feminist, as a second wave feminist, it is repulsive to me, the anti-feminism of saying, oh, women can't possibly lie. Yeah, they can. They can do it just as equally as men can. That's feminism. And treating that with skepticism is real and it's important. And to protect people, protect the bad actors inside feminism just makes feminism worse. And it completely negates some of the work that we've done.
I got you. I got you completely.
I think it's reasonable. In my mind, it is reasonable for Mike Pence not to be in a room with a single woman. That's reasonable. If I'm in a room with a woman, I'm scared a little bit, at least, because every time I'm in a room with a woman, they have the ability to wreck my life by lying, like Rose and Beth did, and like your friend did to you, Nate.
Well, but hold on. I do want to say this. Hold on. I just want to say this. Yes, a woman did lie about me, and it happened, and many men lie about me too. But I will say this: it because one woman lied. I can't discount all women as liars, or to say that this whole thing. No, I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just taking. Well, hold on. I'm just taking that off the table, so to say. Is that I do believe, like, yes, there are people who lie about sexual assault. There are people who lie about sexual assault. Yes, there are. No. Let's say it clear. There are women who have gotten men convicted with lying about sexual assault. Yes, yes, it happens. But I will also say this: is that this is something that's real. This is something that happens, and we should believe facts and evidence, just like with anything else. And a lot of times, cases like this, because I've dealt with cases like this aren't something that you're going to see on TV, and it's not going to be some piece of evidence like, here is the rape thing that we can show in court. Right. It's usually a couple of things. It's usually an intimate environment. It's usually between two people, and it's usually a he said, she said. He said this, she said this. Now, even in the case of Beth, when I was in the precinct, if I had a woman come up to me and say, this happened to me, this person bruised my breast, here are the pictures, and this happened, I'm sorry. That's an arrest, because I have evidence, I have pictures, and I have probable cause to effectuate an arrest. Now, why wouldn't someone go to the police I don't know. A lot of times women are too embarrassed to go to the police and do these type of things, which sometimes is what it is. But I'm going to say this: just because there are false reports doesn't mean we should treat them all as false. I believe we should treat them all the same, in the sense of look for evidence, try to figure out what's actually happening, and then make the best possible judgment after we get all the facts. Without the facts, no one should be leaving either side. You should believe the facts and the evidence.
Press on. We'll let you adjust your focus on your camera.
Go ahead.
I want to respond to that really quickly, and suggest we do have to move on. I understand we have a guest waiting. Dragnet wants to add somebody to the show. I asked that question as a favor to somebody who I really respected, and then Dave, it turns out to set off a fireworks show there. That's interesting. I'm going to express it we could have done a whole show on this. I get your point about feminism. I'm a little frustrated that you're going to say that you're going to take these two experiences and use that as a way of saying, well, this is one of the problems with feminism. When in the breath before, you'll say that feminism has actually been something that's very, very positive. I take your point, though, about how feminism is kind of rebranded, and the feminism, there's a group of sort of radical individuals who've taken over that label, and it gives cover to people who want to now complain about how crazy feminists are. This is a real shame. I also think it's a real shame that we couldn't do a whole show on that topic, because if you watched the show before, but it was a big energizing topic. It led to fights between Aaron and Thunderfoot, and honestly, it was a lot of issues of labeling. We could have done a whole show on this, but we got to talk about your situation. The focus is crazy on your camera. I hope you can fix that.
It's okay.
I do
want to bring something else, but I want to express my frustration in that I understand what you're saying, and I think there's something we can discuss in there. One point I want to address really quickly is the idea about believe all women. I hear a lot of frustration about that. The frustration is over the misunderstanding. So if you have a patient come into a hospital and they're all sweaty and they're pale in color, or they're flush and they're saying they have chest pain, it hurts on their shoulder, then you know what? Presume they're having a heart attack. They're probably not. It's actually less likely they are, but it's better to presume they are. As Nate just said, you have a woman come into the precinct and she's got this and these photographs, and here's the situation. You need to treat that person as a victim initially. That's not how you treat the person who's accused. We don't have time to talk about this now because you expressed you've got to go. We have a guest coming in. We could have had a whole show about that. I think that would have been an interesting topic. I think let me say this. We have to improve our messaging to young men to deal with these situations better. I wish we could do a show about that.
The evidence. I'm not saying discount. I'm saying understand that women can lie and don't convict on the accusation alone, which is what happened to me. That's all I'm saying. It's ridiculous to do what some feminists want, which is convict on evidence alone, which again is what happened to me. I'm not saying that you should not believe women. I'm saying that you should believe all accusations as a default, because that's the right thing to do. Then you investigate, then you look at evidence, then you convict on the evidence. Sure. Unfortunately, in this case, those bruises existed on her breast because she asked me to put them there.
Okay, people can look up the term.
Them there.
I know you use the term in a previous interview, the term breastplay, which I think some people don't know what it is. They can Google it. They could look it up themselves. You say you use the term breastplay. You later discuss bruises. If people want to Google it, they can make sense of it. You once again raise the issue of due process. Oh, that was very courteous of you to the third time segue for Nate's benefit. We'll talk about due process. Nate, I have to ask a favor as a friend. You and I have great conversations about the law. Your channel has wonderful descriptions, very lucid things about this. You are going to need to be a little bit teachery to understand when you explain the term due process. There's a common misunderstanding about it. You're going to feel the temptation to slip into professor mode. I'm going to ask you to do that, but I'm going to ask you to keep it brief, so that at brief and concise, our audience is very smart, and then you can discuss it, and then we have a guest waiting.
I would say this. Let's move past the due process, because time is limited, and I want to respect both the guest time and David Silverman's time. So it's going to take a little bit longer than that. So what I want to do is I do want to be fair to Mr. Silverman, because we gave him a certain amount of time, and now I wanted to move. Let's move the conversation on to what's going on with AAI and what they're going to be doing going forward, if that's okay with you, Hogtie.
Yeah.
We only have a couple of minutes.
Hold on. Well, we do have a guest. Nate, can I ask you to just grab the reins for a moment?
Go ahead.
2 minutes. We do have a guest. The guest is going to ask a question. So we're joined by Converse Contender. Welcome.
Okay, go ahead.
Just give your mic test so we can hear you and ask your question. Yeah, and I apologize. I'm sure you'd love to have a long conversation with people as you hear our energy's up. We're pressed for time.
Sure.
So get your question out, and we'll discuss it briefly, and then we'll let Nate go on.
But sure. we're gonna give maybe like 3 minutes for this question. I'm so sorry it's pressed for time, but we really are pressed for time, so we got about 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Totally understand. Appreciate you guys having me on. I just got a quick question for Dave. Yeah. So Dave, I just want to talk to you about morality real quick and about the situation. I agree with you partially on third wave feminism, but my question is, in a debate you had with Dr. James White, you said evil is a judgment call based on current morality, and then later on you said it's evil. Every instance of slavery is evil. But the first letter of BDSM means bondage. So I just wanted to ask you, is bondage not an evil act in your opinion?
Of course not. Not if it's consensual. Not if it's a game. BDSM is a game, okay? BDSM it's not slavery. I'm not tying anybody up against their will. Bondage in your terms is talking about, you're talking about tying somebody up against their will. That's not what BDSM is. BDSM is a game between two consenting adults, one of whom says, I want you to tie me up. The other one says, okay, I'll tie you up. There's nothing immoral there's nothing bad about that at all. In fact, it's quite beautiful sometimes.
Okay, and the second part of my question was, you said that morality was completely relative, and since evil is just a judgment call based on current morality, if current morality says that what you did was evil, whether the evidence, whether you agree with that or not, does that make it evil?
I don't understand your question.
Do you mind if I rephrase it, Converse Contender?
Go right ahead.
For biblical accounts, we usually say that we judge those biblical accounts as evil based on the morality standards of the day. Right now, the morality standards of the day says that what you did was evil, was wrong, was immoral. But back then it wouldn't be. So he's asking you, based on the standards that we have today, what you did 2 years ago with these two women, wouldn't they fall into the same category?
It's a spectrum. I think it was certainly immoral for me to cheat on my wife. I think it was certainly immoral for me to have sex with Beth's husband, with Beth's wife, despite her husband's best wishes. I think that was immoral. I wouldn't say that either of those were evil. I think that you have to say immoral goes to a certain level before you cross a line, and it's called evil. I think that evil would be at the one end of the spectrum of immorality, which in my subjective opinion, is far beyond anything I've ever done. I don't think I've ever done anything evil. I've done things wrong. I've done things immoral. I've done things on the spectrum, which if they were much worse would have been evil. But no, I don't think I've done anything evil. Now, do I think that cheating on my wife is immoral and carries a death penalty in the Bible? Yes. So cheating on my wife, going back to biblical times, that would get me the death penalty. That a lot of people back then would think I was pretty evil. But times change and society changes, and I don't think cheating on my wife is evil. I think it was wrong. I think it was morally wrong. I think I regret it. I think I don't want to put myself into a situation like that again. I don't ever want to do that again. I think there are lots of extenuating circumstances around that. I don't think it's, a marriage is two ways. And there's a lot of details about my marriage that nobody knows, a lot behind the cheating. But I don't think that would qualify as evil by today's standards.
Do you agree with the?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Converse, because we have one more person waiting,
Sure.
and I gave you, and we went over just a little bit over the 3 minutes. But
Okay.
listen, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for asking your question.
No
We're
problem.
just gonna move forward. Again, so sorry, but pressed for time. You know what I mean?
I understand. Christ is King. Thank you.
Hey, producer. So David, if we can, just tell us about what's happening now with AAI, and what are your things for the future?
Well, AAI, we're rebuilding the organization. We're bringing it back to a democratic state, and we are about to re-embark on what we are now calling the Atheist Lighthouse Program, which is what we're going to be using. We're going to have be working with multiple different organizations to get people who are atheists to safety in bad parts of the world. And this is something that I'm very excited about. We've got the beginnings of it now, but I want to really beef it up. And I want to start getting an actual underground railroad going, where people in different countries will be able to come to us. We'll be able to connect them to the people in those countries that can either get them to a safe place or get them out of the country. And it's something that I'm really excited about. And it's also the other thing that we're doing right now at AAI is the Right to Be Secular campaign, which is the amendment to the UN Human Rights Declaration to get atheists protected on a global level. Those are the two big things that we're working on right now. I'm really, really pleased with it. The third thing that I did want to mention was that I wanted to just plug, if you don't mind, my work against Falun Gong. Do you mind if I talk about that for a couple of minutes?
Go ahead. No, sure. Go ahead.
So Falun Gong is on my shit list. And it's on my shit list because a lot of people don't understand how insidious and how awful it is. Falun Gong is the Chinese people you see stretching in the park.
Yeah.
And it's also the Shenyun Orchestra that goes around the country. It's right here in Seattle now. And basically, the whole idea of Falun Gong is that they are this club that stretches in the park, and all they want to do is stretch in the park. And the evil Chinese government won't let them stretch in the park and persecutes them and sells their organs. And so now they're here, this poor, dilapidated group of people, and all they want to do is stretch in the park. And they have this, and what people don't understand is that Falun Gong is a cult. It is not just a cult. It is a racist cult. It is a homophobic cult. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, an alien cult. It is an alien cult. It is run by a man named Li Hongqi, who claims to have supernatural magic powers to protect humanity from the oncoming alien invasion, which is coming. Now, this is crazy shit. It's really, really an honor for us to be here and be alive during the time when Li Hongqi is alive, because we're going to be able to get to see him conquer the aliens with his supernatural magic Falun Gong powers. These are the people stretching in the park. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Falun Gong. There are aliens coming, and you know what the aliens' best friends are? The aliens' best friends are mixed-race people, because mixed-race people are weak. That's the way it works. You see, you have the stronger races, the lighter races, and the weaker races that are darker races. The darker you are, the more polluted you are, according to Li Hongqi. But still, even a dark-skinned person is not as weak as a mixed-race person. And when the aliens come down, I'm not making any of this shit up, by the way. I'm not making any of this up. This is the people stretching in the park. When the aliens come, they will win or lose based on whether or not Master Lee has enough people who are of his level and how many mixed-race people there are. Those are the two factors. The non-mixed race people, they'll be strong against the aliens. The mixed race people will be weak and easy to conquer against the aliens, which is why the aliens like them so much. If you want to, you can go to the Falun Gong compound in New York, and you can buy all the tickets. You can buy all the things and buy all the tapes and listen to all of Master Lee's rantings about gay people and black people and dark people and all those and mixed race people. And then if you get to the right level, here's where the Scientology thing comes in. If you get to the highest level, Master Lee will place into your abdomen an undetectable interdimensional wheel, literally, which will give you magic powers to levitate and heal. And what happens then is you don't need any sort of medical issues. You don't need any sort of medical help after that happens.
So hold on, Dave, not to cut you off. You're taking me on a journey here, but I'm kind of not understanding where we're going with this. You know what I'm saying?
Where I'm going,
It's an interesting journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey, but I'm just like,
I want everybody to understand that Falun Gong is a dangerous cult, and that wheel that he puts in your abdomen, of course, doesn't exist. But in China, the problem is that people are not quite as skeptical as we are, and they believe that, and they are not getting their medical treatment, and they are dying. In fact, there's a movie out right now, which I'm not going to plug, but there's a movie out, and if you Google it, you'll find it, where it talks about the magical healing powers of Falun Gong, which cure cancer. You don't need it. And so this cult, which causes people to die, they had a 12-year-old light herself on fire with her mother in Tiananmen Square a few years back. This is a horrible, vicious cult that goes around in Shenyun Orchestra. They charge $200 a seat. It's all a money-making arm for this cult, and they come around especially during the Christmas season. And so, if you're going around and if you want to give seats, there's lots of really great shows out there that aren't part of a cult. Shenyun is not one of them. The reason, the journey that I'm taking you on is to make sure that people understand that that Falun Gong claims to be the victim of this huge Chinese
oppression.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
The Chinese oppression. And I'm not saying that the Chinese are really nice. The Chinese government is all roses, okay? There is some evidence that there is some organ harvesting happening, but it's not just in China, and it's not just to Falun Gong. But Falun Gong is making it about them in China.
But, you know, I hate to say this, but I think the people who are watching the Magic Sandwich Show aren't really going to be, interested in joining that cult, even though I understand the danger of it. But, you know,
the cult, just don't. I mean, the $200 seats for Shenyun, that's making millions of dollars for this cult. And go see another show. And so a lot of us, the show is really unspectacular. But I mean, if you want to see, like, the Chinese acrobats are great. The Chinese acrobats are completely different, and they're not associated with a cult. Shenyun is a cult. And you need to know about it. Falun Gong is a cult, and it's a cult where people die, and it's a cult where people get hurt, and it's a cult that's all about making money for Master Lee, who claims to have supernatural powers and is pushing racism and homophobia as a tool to make money. That's what's happening.
Gentlemen, can we move towards? Are we ready to land this plane? Are we ready?
Go ahead.
Is there a hard deadline for us? So this is the irony of it, David, is that we agreed to meet on some conditions with regard to time and topics.
Yeah,
and you're the person I have to cut off. So I want to bring this. I want to thank you so much for showing up here. I also want you to think a little bit about how many fascinating topics we've had here about skeptical thinking. It's not about atheism. It's about skeptical thinking. It's about approaching notions like feminism. What do we want to be as a culture, as a society? Falun Gong. It's an important topic. We could have done a whole show on that.
Let's
right?
do it.
Well, okay, but at what point are your interviews going to stop being the David Silverman show? When is it going to not be your life? I'm glad you came here to do it. It's not a criticism. I want you to think about these fascinating things that you bring to the community, and how so much of this gets to be this topic about, this situation, that situation. I'm glad to hear you have new employment. You're moving forward. I want to encourage you to come back and to talk about feminism, the changing nature of feminism. And I've mentioned a couple of times the quote unquote Me Too thing, which people are really criticizing Me Too. And you know what? It is time for that conversation. I know people are like, oh, they're upset about Me Too, because everybody's saying Me Too. Why are so many people saying Me Too? We could do 2 hours discussing how it is far beyond time to have that conversation. Yeah. Young women, they need to know the circumstances. Young men need to be taught the way men used to be taught about how to treat women. That message is totally gone. Why can't we talk about that for 2 hours? Falun Gong, okay? So it's great. I very much appreciate that you came to discuss with us about this current situation. I'm hopeful for you that you can sort of, move past this and start talking about some other topics. I feel bad for our friend Matt Dillahunty, who I sort of feel was kind of dragged into this, and then we got to speculate about what he's thinking. There's all these wonderful things we could have talked about. I wish you the best. I hope we're in contact again in the future. I hope you're enjoying life's journey, and things get better for you in the future.
Thank you. It has not been an enjoyment over the past couple of years, but it's getting better. And I want to thank you both for disobeying the black ball against me and having me on the show. I know you're going to get some crap for having me on the show. It's not deserved, but you're going to get it anyways. And I want to thank you for the bravery of having me on. And I want to just remind everybody that there are 2 things I'd like to remind you of. Number 1 is Atheist Alliance. Is atheistalliance.org. We need your end of the year donation. We need all the money that you're going to get to donate to charity this year, because we're rebuilding a brand new engine to get people safe and to actually do global atheism, global Firebrand atheism without the baggage of wokeness. And I'm really proud to be a part of an organization that doesn't consider wokeness to be an issue. We're just here to save lives and make the world a better place in Uganda, in Greece, in Nigeria, in the UN, and Bangladesh and Pakistan, and in Turkey. We're in all those countries right now doing really good things, and I hope you all will support us at atheistalliance.org. And I do need help with my legal fees, my legal expenses, because I have a lawsuit going against the folks at American Atheists and the 2 liars who lied about the sexual assault. Please go to firebrandforgood.com/metoo, firebrandforgood.com/metoo to see all the documentation, and you'll see links there to my GoFundMe. I really appreciate your support. And Nate and Hogtie, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate your time and your effort. We did go long. I wanted to go shorter, but we didn't. And because you started me talking, and I had a really good time with you guys, and thank you so much for it.
We are an enjoyable group. You're welcome for that. And I'm going to cue our producer 45 seconds to off air, unless Nate objects promptly.
Oh, no. Just want to say we appreciate you coming on. We can't wait to have you back. Thanks again for everybody for going. And at least, not one super chat. Like damn. Next time we got to do this question thing.
I didn't announce a super chat. It's my first day.
Did we have super chats? I'm what's going on? I'm going to throw a super chat in there for myself.
Not in it for the money. I'm in it for the evangelism. I don't evangelize atheism. I evangelize skeptical thinking and good moral reasoning, and in that vein, my new friend David, I encourage you to enjoy the journey, apply the throttle, pull back on the stick, get some altitude. We'll talk again soon in the future. Thank you to our audience. You're charming. Your questions were great. It was hard to follow the flow of the questions that were coming by. You guys kind of put his feet to the fire. I really enjoy the Magic Sandwich Show's audiences, and I hope to join you guys again in the future. And thank you so much to our producer, Dragnut, who does a surprising amount of work that you guys just don't get to see. Thanks again, David. Thanks again to the audience, and good night, all.
Good night, all.
Good night and good luck.
Thanks.
It says live. Producer, take us.